Hello adventurers, here is our updated gear list. You can see at the top I have each of our names, and then the list of different things kind of divided into, you could almost think of it as rooms. So camp systems kind of represents our bedroom, cooking represents the kitchen. So what I've started doing here is you can see I've put X's into the columns where I know that both Brian and I have gear, or where I know that people have gear. You'll see PBO Extra, that's Peace Bill Outfitters. So that's to give you a sense of some of the things that we have extra in case you don't personally have the item. So if you could put an X into the box for the stuff that you have, this will help give all of us a better idea of where we're at for gear, and more importantly, help our conversation for things like tents or camp chairs. Certain things where I may have something, you may have something, and we decide we only need 3 of the items, but everybody has one, so then we can have a discussion about who's going to bring theirs and who is going to leave theirs at home. So, hopefully everybody has a backpack and a cover in case it rains. As far as our bedroom is concerned, sleeping bag and sleeping pad, preferably one of the sleeping pads that you inflate, tends to be better than just the egg carton looking one. A bivy sack, Brian and I have found, is really helpful for helping against moisture and just to help add another layer to trap heat since we might have some colder days. Bivy sacks can be purchased through military surplus stores. If you want more details on that, just send me an email. Compression sacks are great for squishing up the sleeping bag into the tiniest bit possible. Makes repacking in the morning easier. We don't necessarily need a bunch of camping chairs, but 1 or 2 is going to be helpful for those campsites where the ground might be damp and there may not be any fallen logs or anything to sit on. At the end of the day, sitting is going to feel really, really good. Now, at the beginning of the season, the National Park Service is trying to get out to all of the bathrooms and stock them with toilet paper. But one of the things they do advise is making sure to take some extra TP because they may not necessarily have stocked all of the bathrooms. So we're going to bring at least 1 roll apiece to make sure that we are okay with that. Brian and I have tons of camp suds for washing up after we have made a meal, so please don't feel like you need to bring extra camp suds. You will want a trowel in case you need to dig a little cat hole off trail for the moments when peristalsis takes over and you can't make it to a vaulted toilet at a campground. Everybody will want a mosquito head net. Now, depending on temperature, we may be there at a time when it's too cold for the mosquitoes to come out yet, but if the mosquitoes are hatching, they will come out in force. They will be very, very hungry, and those head nets will be quite helpful. I'm personally bringing 2 knee braces. I know that my knees lately have had some trouble, so do bring any sort of bodily help that you might want just in case your body starts to get a little growly on some of our hikes. Luca-tape is wonderful. I think everybody should have their own roll of Luca-tape. You put that over the hot spots on your feet or places that might rub or develop blisters, and it does wonders for protecting those areas on the long hikes. Now, I'm personally scared of wolves, so I'm going to bring a bear bell and pepper spray because I just don't really want to see a wolf. As far as cooking is concerned, this is where I think we're going to have the conversation about sharing items. I think we only need 3 stoves. So if we think of ourselves as 3 groups of 2, we just need 1 stove per pair. We'll need fuel, at least 1 titanium pot per pair, and then a heavy-duty tin foil windscreen, which is extremely helpful on the days when we've got a strong breeze. That is what will keep the heat going straight up to your pot between your fuel canister and stove. Now, as far as water is concerned, I think we have a similar situation as we do with our pot and fuel stove. We generally only want 1 Sawyer's squeeze system, which includes a syringe and squeeze bags per couple. So right now Brian and I have a Sawyer squeeze, so I think we just need a couple more and everybody will have a good system. I don't think anybody else needs to bring a secondary purification system. Brian and I have one. We'll bring it, but in general, if we have the Sawyer squeeze, we'll be fine. We didn't find that we needed a secondary purification system when we've been out on the island. Clothing. This is the part that I always screw up on. I usually bring more than what I need. I like to have a clean sleep layer every night. That way, it's not a new clean sleep layer, but it's a sleep layer that I didn't sweat in all day. That tends to make sleeping feel better. Definitely do bring a hat. The sun up on the Greenstone Ridge Trail can feel very intense, and I found a hat is hugely helpful for those days. All of our clothing and socks should be wool. When it comes to boots, hopefully you have a set of hiking boots that are broken in. And here's where we have a little debate about waterproofness and weight. Brian is going with some boots that are going to dry out quicker. They are not waterproof. I have waterproof boots because I hate it when my feet get wet. That's when my skin gets wet on my feet, then I find it gets tender and is more likely to blister. So 2 different philosophies on boots. Whichever philosophy you go with, lighter boots that may not be waterproof but dry out quickly, or waterproof boots because you don't want your feet wet, know that they need to be broken in. You want to make sure they feel well worn. You know where the pressure points are on your feet so you can lubricate those. Your boots are going to be your best friend. You want to make sure you have a good relationship with them before going to the island. I do like to bring a lighter pair of camp shoes so that I can take my boots off at the end of the day and let them dry out. And then having those camp shoes is really nice for the middle of the night. Oh my God, I can't believe I have to pee. But when you do have to pee in the middle of the night, make sure to look up at the sky. Hopefully it's clear. The stars are frickin' amazing. It's just gorgeous. Puffy coats are really helpful. We don't, again, know what the weather is going to be. And so having the versatility of some kind of puffy coat allows us to be able to retain heat, potentially sleep in that puffy coat, which I like to do, and then also be able to take it off. Pretty much every day, we'll wake up feeling chilly, and within an hour or two, be peeling off layers, and then by the end of the day, be putting those layers back on when we're back in camp, and our metabolism starts to slow down a little bit. So kind of plan for that rhythm in your day. Layering up, layering down. I do like to have a secondary bottom layer, whether that's smart wool pants or whether that is the wonderful Costco 32 degree underlayer for the bottoms. I find that having that secondary layer really saves me on the cold and windy days. So just some advice when you're trying to pick out your clothing. I like to keep 1 extra shirt and 1 extra pair of pants as my sort of emergency. I fell into a mud puddle. I couldn't believe that the boardwalk was going to be that narrow and I was going to be that klutzy. I like to have a backup pair. As far as miscellaneous stuff goes, we will have 1 solar panel and we will have a battery, an anchor battery for recharging cell phones. The cell phones are nice for emergency. We do have better cell phone service on the island than we did in 2008. But more importantly, I find that having the cell phones means you get to take lots and lots of pictures. Everybody should have a headlamp. Hiking poles end up saving your life and helping you to expend less energy, so I strongly, strongly recommend them. You can see on here I have a hat again. that is how much I really, really know how helpful a hat can be. Have an empty bag for dirty clothes. It's nice to keep them separated inside of your bag, especially if we have a warm day and those dirty clothes get excessively grungy. Now let's talk food. One of the things Brian and I want to have is we want to beans and rice every day with Fritos. This is the Skirka meal, and I can send you a recipe if you'd like. Or Brian has offered to make packages for everybody. Just send us your request, and we can get those made up for you. We like the good-to-go meals. One big bag generally will feed 2 people for 1 meal. We're going to pick up some of those or some Patagonia meals that we're trialing right now. You can also experiment and make some of your own meals with fast-cooked noodles. Ramen noodles are real popular. There's all kinds of different things out there if you wander the grocery store. You just basically want to think of it as, what can I boil water, add it to, and have that be delicious? Because that's essentially what you want to do at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, is boil some water, add it to some food. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the expensive backpacking meals. You can kind of experiment here as far as what you want to bring. I will caution you, do not bring Bob's Red Mill multigrain breakfast cereal. We'll talk horror stories of that when we are on the trail. Brian and I aren't planning on a formal breakfast or traditional breakfast. We're probably going to do like beans and rice, or we're going to do one of the good-to-go meals. We're going to keep it heavy, kind of, good calories, as opposed to some of the traditional breakfast stuff that's kind of lighter calories. Even oatmeal is a little bit on the lighter side, and by noon, your tummy will be sending you signals saying, why couldn't you have had something more substantial? We bring a bag of nuts and dried fruit, and that is delicious to have as a snack. Generally, in the middle of the day, we don't sit down and boil water for a formal lunch. Most of the time, we really just want to keep hiking. We're in the motion. We're in the groove. And it feels kind of like it lengthens the day to make a lunch in the middle of the day. So that's just the way how we like to do this. Note that I have on here a luxury item. This is the type of camping trip where we will probably have a little bit of extra space, and more importantly, a little bit of extra wiggle room on the weight, where if you wanted to bring like a small box of wine or some kind of little snack that's a little heavier, you could definitely bring that. One of the things to keep in mind, chocolate will melt, so while it's really tempting to bring chocolate bars or even add chocolate chips to like a nut mix, what'll happen is they'll melt during the day with the sunlight beating down on us, and then it'll just turn into a like mush and then harden a mess. So maybe some M&Ms if you're into that, or some kind of coated chocolate. But keep that in mind when you're thinking about how to pack for food. Now, one of the things we're hoping to do is to leave a bag at the lodge. So our last day, we're going to be back in Rocky Harbor, and they do have showers available. So even though we can't get a housekeeping cottage, there are showers available. And so hopefully they still let us keep a bag where we can put all of our shower stuff, a towel. I'm going to bring a big beach towel for myself so I can have that kind of cushy, wrapped up warmth, a clean change of clothes, and a wireless speaker. So we're going to bring some of those luxury items and put them in a bag that can get stored at the lodge. And we'll pick that up on our last day, and then bring that bag with us back to camp. Now, probably what we're also going to want to do is stop at the store in Rocky Harbor. They have a bunch of those. They have a bunch of those grills, and we may want to stop at the camp store and get a bunch of stuff to grill out and kind of have a little bit of party there at the shore. On Friday when we leave, before the boat leaves, the boat's going to leave at about 2:30 in the afternoon, so that gives us some time in the morning. We may want to rent a canoe and head over to Raspberry Island that has like a half mile trail. There's some other trails north of Rocky Harbor too, takes us out to Scoville Point. There's a lot of fun things that we can do while we're waiting for the boat to leave, including just sitting there and staring out at Lake Superior. So keep all that in mind. The other thing, I don't know how much experience you've had on boats. I know that I get a little bit motion sickness, so I'm going to have some of those little strips that I can take in case Lake Superior is a bit moody. When we're heading out there, my first trip to the island, Lake Superior had 6 to 10 foot waves, and I discovered not only do I get motion sickness, but I get severe motion sickness. So hopefully we have a nice calm day. I wanted to scroll to the top of the list here to put our hopeful itinerary. If you have the map, you can start to look at these trails and see what they entail, including paying attention to those bars that indicate elevation. There's a great book for the I think it's called the Royale Trails, and they give descriptions, and sometimes they give you an estimated time about how many hours it should take to do the trail. We don't have to adhere to this. We can always ditch out at any time. There's lots and lots of different options with this itinerary. It leaves a lot of flexibility for however we are feeling. So I look forward to seeing what kind of gear you have. Hopefully this can help facilitate our conversation. Email me if you have any questions. Woohoo!